Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of Law & Order, the video series where I look at and unpack stories from games. In this one, I'll be looking at the story from Bloober Team's latest slice of horror, and that is the story from Cronos: The New Dawn. This game was, in my opinion, pretty good. The story was fairly confusing though, and I went into this game completely blind, with the story being drip-fed to me. A lot of the background in the world was contained within missable notes and conversations, but don't worry, if you're not the kind of player that enjoys reading lots of things in games, then I've got you covered. As for the gameplay, the game was great. It was very reminiscent of Dead Space in terms of the combat, and there was good enemy variety. In true survival horror, the supplies were scarce but manageable with the right strategies, and the voice acting was superb. The atmosphere was on point too, with that being something that Bloober always seemed to nail in their games. Finally, as this is a new game, please note that there will be spoilers in this video for Cronos: The New Dawn, but with all that out of the way, let's begin. A person in what looks like a spacesuit, known as a traveller, belonging to something known as the Collective, is strapped into a capsule. They hear a voice that says the Lazarus Protocol has been engaged, and that it's time to awaken. Asking them to answer a series of questions, they are asked their purpose, and then after more questions, the machine responds that the trial is completed, and that she is welcome to something called the Vocation. This is essentially the purpose of her kind, their mission. Collecting a relic, which is a weapon that can shift itself to a gun or a melee weapon based on the situation, the traveller steps out of this capsule to complete their task, which is to track their predecessor's last known location. She appears to be on Earth and in Poland, judging from various posters and signage on the area. Entering an apartment building, the traveller sees writing on the walls, stating that you will know them by their eyes and that the infected are inside. Finding their way into an apartment, there's a dead body inside, but the traveller pushes through and finds odd pulsating organic growths, which contain more bodies. Something scurries away inside another room, which leads to a clothing store, and from a sign, something happened around the year 1981. A flyer written to citizens by Dr. Robert Tyqua mentions people had been experiencing symptoms. Something had led to the downfall of this place. An epidemic, and people were advised to stay home. This place is known as New Dawn. The traveller gets attacked by a horrific creature and puts it down. What on earth happened here? Finding a voice memo left by the predecessor, he headed to a sector C31. Managing to leave the building, the traveller notices more malformed biomass made up from human bodies. Heading down the path and fighting more monsters, the traveller finds a newspaper mentioning a foreign virus, and that entire cities were quarantined. The traveller soon sees how these monsters are becoming strong. They merge with dead bodies and morph into something grotesque. Judging from a voice memo, these monsters are called orphans, and they've undergone a grotesque process known as the Change. Finding the exit, the traveller finds another voice log about the orphans, and that fire is the best way to destroy biomass before these orphans have a chance to emerge from it. This voice log was left by another traveller designated 2461. Back outside again, the traveller is now in the residential area. Defeating more orphans, the traveller finds a time oddity blocking the route forward and needs to deal with it. She uses a relic module which can manipulate these oddities or anomalies, and further on the predecessor 3500 is found. Examining the body, they find their anchor is intact, and they salvage the data from 3500. It says that they were searching for a target named Edvard Wisniewski in a sector D3, but that they never reached him. The traveller says they will continue in their place, so the traveller heads towards D3, which is the housing project. She eventually reaches the housing project and sees a bright yellow light there, with this being what's known as a dive point. The building has also been heavily affected by anomalies. The traveller finds the apartment number for Edvard, number 48. Ascending the block due to the elevator being off limits for now and hearing a strange voice asking where she is, the traveller finds a key to a hardware store and on the way to the store sees a strange orphan. Much different to the ones already encountered, with this one being much darker and taller. Grabbing some bolt cutters, the traveller uses them to open the elevator and discovers a voice log which mentions the previously seen orphan. It's described as being in a state of suppressed recomposition, and this person, another predecessor, designated 2461, seems to think that it's due to the influence of the time oddities. Taking the elevator up, the traveller is even closer to the dive point. These are rifts in time. Before being able to reach it though, the traveller must fight the strange orphan, and destroying exposed weak spots, they manage to bring it down. Throughout the fight, this entity emits a voice, which appears to speak directly from inside the traveller. A bit further on, the traveller stands before the dive point. Synchronizing this time rift and transporting to a time before the building was destroyed, the traveller now needs to continue to track down Edvard. Looking around his apartment, it's clear that he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, believed that the rumours of the travellers were real, and people who know him consider him to be a crackpot. Finding a code in there on a photo of a woman named Angela, the traveller opens up a safe and inside is a letter written by Edvard, which mentions that he's going to a shelter. The traveller needs to go there next. Stepping out of the apartment, the traveller walks past another apartment with an orphan painted onto the door and the words disease written next to it. The door opens and a voice accuses Edvard of taking their daughter, who is Angela, for experiments and filling her head with nonsense. The woman, Magda, asks the traveller to reunite them with their daughter. Magda is blind, which is one of the symptoms of the change. Finding the shelter, which is just outside the apartment block, the traveller finds that it's locked, and after a quick detour and a fight against another orphan, the traveller finds the key. Entering the shelter, it becomes clear that the orphans have breached it, and the traveller can hear someone humming the tune for Silent Night. Entering a room, the traveller sees Angela there and asks where Edvard is. Thanks to the conversation with Angela's mother, the traveller assumed that she was being kept there against her will by Edvard. This is not the case, but we'll discuss Angela and Edvard's background in a bit more depth shortly. Edvard emerges and recognises the traveller, saying that he knew the travellers were real all along, and he thinks the travellers are the government. Angela then, clearly tired of old Edvard's conspiracies, walks off, and Edvard says he wants to protect her, getting angry at experiments that the government has been covering up. The traveller then does something to Edvard. She extracts his essence, storing the essence inside herself inside something called a phylactery. Now back in the present, she needs to start what she calls the Ascendance sequence and returns to the station, now being granted access to an area previously locked. Now in a large open area with a strange contraption called the Terminal, the traveller places Edvard's essence into the terminal and begins the sequence. Edward is there in this strange place, which is the phylactery itself, and he asks what he's doing there. The traveller says that he's there to join the collective because of his significance. Only by joining with the rest can Edvard make his own survival a possibility. He says the knowledge he has accumulated may be of use, and he says that everything went to hell at the city's steelworks right after the traveller showed up there. A name, Artur, is mentioned. But before Edvard can divulge more information, things start to get sketchy just as the Ascendance is about to commence, but the traveller says that something is wrong. A glitch seems to occur. They then pull out of the phylactery, but by who? Stepping out, she's in the same large open area as before, and she sees someone else there wearing the same armour as her.
You almost fried there. Good thing I was around. Now, how are you holding up?
I have not suffered any serious damage. I am fit to proceed with my purpose.
Your purpose? I see.
Who are you?
I am the Warden. The work of the Travelers is eternal, but the tools that serve us are just crude matter. And so, the collective entrusted some of us with a task to keep watch over them.
So you fix things?
I take care of them. Well, at least I did. Before something stopped the Travelers' awakenings. Stopped the Vocation. It's been an awfully long time since someone tried to use it. And to be brutally honest, I didn't think the collective would send anyone else.
Can you repair it?
Do you want me to?
Yes. Something is blocking the Ascendance sequence. The Vocation must go on. I need to do my part.
Ah, yes. That's understandable. Have no fear. The essence you collected is secured. It is the terminal that must be restored to its former glory. I'll get it up and running. Somehow. That's what I'm here for.
Needing to gather the other essences, the traveller needs to head to Sector A11, to the Steelworks, in order to find Artur's essence. She also wishes to find out if there's any truth to Edvard's claim that the travellers were the ones that started all this. The Warden states that the tram may be the best way to the Steelworks, as it's quite a way away. As expected, the tram and the line needs powering up first, so after fighting many orphans, the traveller manages to power it up, and on the tram she sees another predecessor, this one being 2187. Establishing a connection to 2187, the traveller discovers another essence inside, another person chosen by the collective and stored inside this traveller's phylactery. This essence belongs to a woman named Lydia Marzek, and the traveller can choose whether to transfer her essence to her own phylactery or not. Taking the tram and arriving at the Steelworks, the traveller begins her journey to the dive point. Gaining entry into the Steelworks, the traveller sees a grotesque mass of bodies in there. She also discovers that in order to get to the dive point, she will need some counter-gravity equipment. As expected, this place is swarming with infected, so battling her way through orphan-infested and biomass-covered tunnels, the traveller hears voices and senses that something is wrong. After a long trek through different areas of the Steelworks, the traveller manages to make it to the halls, and this was clearly a quarantine area for those infected. Some still sit in agony suffering from this disease. Unfortunately, due to the nature of this place, there are still many infected here. Passing through as they bizarrely do not seem to attack the traveller, she finds a voice log which directs her to the isolation zone, and there she will hopefully find what she needs. Using a master key to access more areas, the traveller passes through a lab which was used to observe early infected, and she finds the relic she was looking for, which she has to take from the dead body of another predecessor. Using these new gravity boots, the traveller makes it to the rift. Using the anchor and synchronizing, just like at the apartment block, the traveller reaches their temporal destination, a large observation area with an open cell in the middle of it. But now to track Artur. Following blood trails through some double doors, the traveller comes across a grisly scene, with bodies and blood everywhere. These are military personnel. They obviously tried to contain something but got torn to pieces. On the wall, written in blood, are the words, "Don't let them merge." Moving forward, the traveller encounters a woman named Veronica Kaminsky there, who says that she worked there as a doctor but that she wants to try and find a way out. She says there was an outbreak there and that the workers never stood a chance. Asking why she is there despite an outbreak taking place, Veronica starts avoiding the question. She begs to be let go, saying that there's no one left there alive. Unfortunately for Veronica, her radio reveals that she is in fact not alone, and this person trying to reach her is Artur. He says he's found someone they were looking for, and that he's in the foreman's office. Veronica warns Artur on the radio, telling him to run before escaping herself. More instability renders the traveller unable to pursue straight away. After she recovers, she carries on as she needs to find the foreman's office. Seeing infected there and hearing gunfire, the traveller moves through offices and sees an explosion nearby. After a battle with an extremely large infected, the traveller reaches the foreman's office, and inside she sees two men. One of them is Artur, and he fires a shot at the traveller. The other man, who is Artur's brother Gabriel, is in bad shape and appears to be infected. Gabriel recognises the traveller, saying he came back. The traveller says that Gabriel's fate is set, but that Artur has been chosen to join the collective. Being handed a drawing of the traveller is confused. Artur then puts a gun to his head, blaming the travellers for what happened, for bringing the disease to Earth. The traveller can choose to save the man or not, and she uses on Artur or Gabriel, depending on choice, the same contraption she used on Edvard. Now back in the present, the traveller heads back to the station to begin the Ascendance sequence. Getting back to it though, it appears that the device is powered down and the Warden is gone. Hearing piano playing nearby, the traveller investigates and finds the Warden there. He seems to be quite intrigued by the human race, and that they seem to partake in activities such as music and theatre, with these things not being crucial to their survival, and that this is where they got their humanity from. He says he wants to at least save a part of what humans once were, rather than just saving them himself. He sees humanity as an anomaly, and he speaks of humanity's time being finite and linear, and that they were taught something different. Asking why he switched off the terminal, he says that a machine needs a rest from time to time. It needed fixing, basically. He tells the traveller to find a restaurant nearby and to switch the terminal back on and it should work. so the Traveller heads into a deeper part of the station and gets the power online in order to start the ascendance. Placing the anchor, the Warden says the terminal will select the next target, but he also says that she can speak with the essence, but only for a limited time, as the machine may get a little bit unstable. Connecting, either Artur or Gabriel are there, depending on the Traveller's decision at the Steelworks. If Artur is there, he is very agitated, but the Traveller tells him that he possesses the answers she seeks, which is what happened to Gabriel. The Traveller still has no idea how they are responsible for what happened here. He says they didn't care about his brother but only cared about the Travellers. He speaks of a doctor, Zibbert, and his experiments. Wanting to know more about the doctor and the alien that he speaks of, there's nothing the Traveller can do to calm Artur down, and he ends up pulling the trigger, and this ejects the Traveller from the phylactery. If, on the other hand, Gabriel's essence is there, he speaks of being beaten and blames it on the Traveller and her kind. Pressing him on having seen another Traveller before, he says they went to search for missing workers underneath the furnace, but they saw a Traveller there instead who wanted to talk to someone they only called her. He says that's why they interrogated them. He too mentions Dr. Zibbert and says that he's a good man, that he was brought in to conduct research on the Traveller they'd found. Zibbert also said that he'd healed the infected. He said the infected got transferred to the hospital, and he talks about the pain, and that there's not much of him left anymore. He then either multiplies and rushes towards the Traveller, pushing her out of the phylactery, or she's simply forced out. The Warden says the terminal is not yet fully operational. They mention the Traveller that was there and that was captured, and the doctor that was examining Artur and Gabriel, a Dr. David Zibbert. This is the Traveller's next target. He's in Sector A0. The Warden says that is the hospital sector, and that many predecessors have fallen in trying to reach it. The gate to A0 isn't far away, and the Traveller heads through it. Traversing the destroyed buildings by using the gravity boost, the Traveller soon sees why so many predecessors fell trying to reach the hospital, as many very strong orphans are in her way. She arrives at a predecessor's outpost, which was previously used by ND-1410. Stepping outside and a short way away, the Traveller has finally made it to the hospital, and she immediately sees the rift and uses the anchor to synchronize. Now to search for Dr. Zibbert. Moving through the hospital, the Traveller hears the voice of Veronica, and she is stuck in the elevator on level 3. She's not too pleased to hear the Traveller responding, but the Traveller tells her she's after David and not her. He has information that she needs. Veronica says she can give her what she knows instead, claiming that she knows a lot. So the Traveller needs to unblock the elevator, and biomass is blocking it as it's forming a nest. Veronica says they were working on a toxin there at the hospital, and that they can deliver that to the heart. You'll need 3 formulas, and they need tracking down. Whilst in the hospital, the Traveller experiences more major glitches that shift her from the past and back to the present again. The Traveller thinks that this place is stuck in between time and space. Going to 3 different parts of the hospital, the Traveller manages to get all 3 formulas and mixes them together. Locating the heart, the Traveller then injects the toxin into the biomass. Trying to reach Veronica though, it appears that something is up, as she's gone quiet and is not responding. With the biomass in the elevator shaft gone, the Traveller jumps into it and emerges in an underground facility, and she now needs to track down Veronica. Cautiously making her way through the facility, the Traveller comes up against a colossal infected, another dark biomass, but she kills it. Continuing on, she finds Veronica, and she's in front of Dr. Zibbert, who has himself undergone the change and has become part of the biomass. She mentions the Traveller they had caught called himself the Pathfinder, and that the plan was to take him to the hospital as they had hoped he could be used for a cure. She says that she was the Pathfinder's target, but she doesn't know where the Pathfinder is. She says that she was trying to protect the Pathfinder as he did her a favour. Veronica says even though she was destined for the Ascension, she didn't want it. With Zibbert's mind quickly fading away, Veronica steps aside and allows the Traveller to extract. With the target tracked and extracted, the Traveller is back in the present and needs to make her way back to the terminal, but not before something happens and she once again suffers a glitch or a malfunction. Anyhow, stepping outside the hospital, the Traveller suffers yet more hallucinations and glitches. She sees the Warden, along with all the essences that she's collected. She's hearing the voices of those essences too. Collapsing and somehow making her way to the terminal, the Warden says that the essences are having an effect on the Traveller. They are essentially fighting, and they need to get them out of there. The essences have spent far too much time stored in the Traveller's phylactery, and they've now become bonded with the Traveller, becoming part of her identity. If she tries to remove even one of them, her whole being will collapse, and they will take over, depriving her of her sanity. The Warden manages to temporarily stop the essences taking over, but they still need to remove them. To get them out, the terminal needs to be properly fixed. The Warden has tried again and again, but he's having some trouble. The Traveller mentions the Pathfinder, and the Warden acts as if he's heard that name before. She says she needs to speak to Dr. Zibbert, so she goes to speak with him by using the terminal. Zibbert is not there, but Angela is. She recognizes the traveler from the bunker. She says that Edvard is safe, but they are both confused as to how Angela is there instead of Dr. Zibbert. Angela says she went to the hospital to find her mother and she got sick there. She met Dr. Zibbert. She tried to look for a cure there but couldn't find one, and the traveler asks Angela to reach into her mind and remember something. A memory that was not supposed to be hers. The traveler thinks that Angela possesses the memories of Dr. Zibbert. Angela reaches into her mind and Dr. Zibbert has taken over and is now speaking through Angela. Wanting to know what he did with the Pathfinder, Zibbert tells the traveler that the military were onto him and that the Pathfinder was no longer safe with him and he needed to ensure the safety of the Pathfinder, hiding him away somewhere. An execution order was given to kill everyone, healthy and sick, patients and doctors. He tried to save Angela and the rest. Zibbert says he takes personal responsibility for leading the military to the hospital. Zibbert shows his regret in moving him from the Steelworks. Zibbert then says that he had a daughter, but that he doesn't know what happened to her. She has a different father now, and he mentions the name Eliza. Zibbert asks the traveler to find his daughter. Asking what happened in the Steelworks, he says they failed, and they let everything slip out of their hands. Asking if the travelers were the ones that brought the sickness, Zibbert says that he believes the sickness was always there, waiting. Leaving the Ascendants, the traveler plots the course for the next target, and its mother, Eliza Zibbert. Speaking with the Warden, she shares what she learned, that the Pathfinder's last known location is an abbey, and the target is Mother Eliza. Another tram will be needed, as the abbey is located on the outskirts of New Dawn, in Sector A25. The Warden reveals that he's made a fascinating discovery. The Pathfinder is not just a mere traveller, he's the vanguard amongst all of those awakened to fulfill the collective's calling. They created the rifts that people like the traveller uses. They did not use the anchors though, they used great relics, making them much more powerful, but not only that, they are also independent. With that same power they could rebuild everything, including themselves, and they could also upload the essences to the terminal and therefore save our traveller. The traveller does have reservations though, whether or not the Pathfinder will be on their side when they meet him. He says that this will give them all a chance for a fresh start, and the Warden asks if the traveller trusts him. Leaving for the tram, the traveller finds that familiar situation in that she needs to power the tram up before she's able to use it. Powering up both generators and fighting off numerous orphans, including another massive one, the traveller restores power to the tram and returns to it. On the tram, she rides it all the way to the outskirts. However, the tram only takes her so far and she'll have to go the rest of the way on foot. Once again using the anti-gravity boots to traverse the broken buildings, the traveller makes it to the area where the abbey is. She mentions the anomaly being strong here. This abbey is conveniently called the Church of the Last Days. Approaching the church, the traveller hears a voice from within, one that did not come from the essences. It speaks of this being their place of ordeal, and of the traveller being another deceiver, another spawn. Approaching the door to the abbey, of course it's locked and requires a fancy puzzle to be solved before gaining entry. Scouring the area, including the cemetery for the additional parts of the puzzle, the traveller constantly hears the voice, challenging them why they are there, their purpose, and that they've been deceived. Moving into the catacombs, the traveller sees hallucinations of people worshipping the change, seeing it as a divine act of God. She also suffers hallucinations of other travellers too. Having collected all three parts of the puzzle, the traveller places them in the right order and enters the church.
I need this traveler. Back off, or I'll fire. We feel the fire.
Fighting what remains of Mother Eliza, along with all the orphans she can summon, the traveller ultimately defeats her. She says that she will be with her god now and that she will not be afraid, and she then dies. The traveller then approaches the figure slumped in front of the altar. Having now found the Pathfinder with him seemingly dead, she is shocked to find the Warden's designation on the Pathfinder's suit. Attempting to salvage the data, his last target was indeed Veronica Kaminsky. Sitting down next to the Pathfinder, the traveller finds a message within the data.
This is a warning. I am leaving because I no longer believe in the validity of the Vocation. Maybe it is to my own misfortune that I got close to people. But when I did, I discovered what they really were. And so, I don't think our work helps them become a better being. They are perfect now, in their imperfection. Full of hope, unyielding, bright, and deciding their own fate. That's why I won't let them be put together into the cogs of a machine that dehumanizes them. And above all, I can't let anyone else take her, for she was the only one who saw one of them in me. Fortunately, I believe I have found the way to stop it all. No more extractions. No more awakenings. But for those who are still there, if somehow you are there, do not follow. Don't trust in the collective. All that matters to them is their own hunger.
You just wanted to protect people? Protect her. That's all there is to it.
Leaving with the Pathfinder via the tram and heading back to the terminal, the traveller finds a bloody sight. Calling out for the Warden, she experiences another painful attack from the Essences. Going to confront the Warden, the traveller sees a door with Lazarus written on it, and she needs to learn what's behind it, so finding a key to the locked police station, she heads in there. Throughout her short time in the police station, she constantly hears the voice of Veronica. But how? Veronica speaks of how dark it is. She is also shocked to see the cells there locked and filled with predecessors, but why would the Warden do this to them? Powering up the door, the traveller enters the room and finds the torso of Veronica wired up to a machine. Grabbing her and ripping her away from the machine, the traveller then collapses and the Warden runs in, furious.
What? What have you done? Just when I thought we were actually beginning to accomplish something. Just when you were starting to be complete. You have ruined everything, you monster.
Monster? It's you who made me this. Why? Why did you make me like this?
Because she would never give up.
What?
She would try to save humanity at all costs. And so, you were to be what is left of it. Because her essence, no, her soul, would have lived on in you.
You dare to call this living? I don't even know who I am.
You are not her.
And the vocation? Was it all a lie?
You and your vocation. Did you ever really think
you were saving any of them. I just needed something to replace the damage in her memory matrix. So I did it with a Traveler's behavioral core, and I filled the gaps with what I once was. I knew she would change, yes, but I still thought she'd stay herself. Oh, how wrong I was. Instead, I was left with you. The very thing I once refused to be.
Why? Why didn't you tell me who I am? Who I once was?
I thought I was giving you the most human of gifts. I imagined you would wake up without what bound you in the past. That you would be a new person in this new future, this new chapter, and you would make it your own, that you would be free. And instead, you chose to serve. But you do serve well. And so I still have a chance to start all over.
The Pathfinder, who remember is the Warden, wakes up and he opens a rift in order to go and fix things. Stepping through the rift and going after him, he's at the city's old clock tower. It's been completely ripped apart thanks to the time disturbance. Using the anti-gravity boots, she ascends and reaches the top of the clock tower where she prepares to confront the Pathfinder. She finds Veronica there, and the Traveler tells her that she cannot trust the Pathfinder, that his plan to save humanity is all a lie, and that he only cares about saving her. She tells Veronica that she's seen what he will do to her, and that she should just let go. Veronica says that he told her that the Traveler would come for him as punishment from the Collective for his disobedience. The Traveler then shouts that she is not of the Collective. She tells Veronica that she is in fact her. That's right, Veronica's essence has been inside the Traveler the entire time. The Pathfinder then arrives, clearly aggrieved at the Traveler, shouting that she's not Veronica. He then transports them to various areas. Blinded by his obsession with Veronica, he refuses to see the flaw in his plan. They face off, and despite him being very strong, the Pathfinder is eventually defeated. Approaching the wounded Pathfinder, he begs the Traveler to at least let him try, and that there is still hope for them all, to which she replies that she cannot. He asks the Traveler to forgive him. Veronica shows up and the Traveler says that it's best for this to end now, and that what he is going to do there will not save humanity. Veronica then says that she's fine with that, much to the surprise of the Traveler. Veronica elaborates and says that they can't save humanity in this timeline, but that there are other possibilities. She says that she believes the Traveler when she says that she is her, but that she doesn't want to give up now. Not when they can just try again. She says that the Pathfinder is a friend who wants to help her, with the Traveler saying that he is poison. Veronica then addresses the Traveler as Veronica in an attempt to reach her. She says that she wants to have a future, whatever that future may be. Telling Veronica that her future is simply to suffer, she responds that without that future, they don't even have a flicker of hope. The Traveler now has a choice. In ending A, the Traveler pulls the trigger and shoots the Pathfinder, killing him. A distraught Veronica asks why the Traveler would even care since she is her past, that she could just go away and be free, to which the Traveler responds that she is free. Picking up the Pathfinder's relic, the Traveler opens up a rift with it. The fate of humanity has essentially been sealed at this point. Humans had run out of time, essentially, and it's best to just live with that fact. The Traveler then sends Veronica through the rift and to Edward's apartment. She embraces him, saying she didn't want to be alone. She is experiencing early symptoms of the change, such as loss of vision, and the game fades to black, and their fates are set. In ending B, the Traveler opts to not shoot the Pathfinder. As a result, Veronica hands the Pathfinder his relic, and he opens up a rift, sending them both back to try again. When he wakes up though, Veronica is experiencing early symptoms of the change. The Pathfinder is devastated and says that he won't let her go out like this. With no other option and her time running out, he extracts her essence and as a result, destroys that hope of a future that Veronica talked about. As she fades away, the Pathfinder promises to fix this. So yeah, those two endings are pretty bleak, and neither of them are good endings. There is a third secret ending, which is achieved through New Game Plus, but we'll cover that one at the end of the video. Right, so there's probably a bit of confusion in your brain right now, but don't worry, as we go over the events of the game, the outbreak, what happened, and also look at the many terms along with what they mean, such as the Vocation, the Collective, Ascension, and the Change. But let's start with discussing the city of New Dawn. The city where the game takes place is the fictional city of New Dawn. This city was seen as a city of the future, the shining symbol of socialism, and its area of industry was steel, with the steelworks in the city being a provider of many jobs, and the steelworks itself was thought to be a testament to human ambition and collective strength. One man was renowned as a great worker, and that was father of two Roman Barrica. He and his team laid 19,000 bricks in one day back in 1950. New Dawn would grow and it would attract many to the city, eager to find their place in the community. The transport system was also very ambitious, with it taking 30 years to build, and the city was decorated with the works of renowned artists and sculptors such as Anthony Surma. It wasn't all perfect in the city though, as people would regularly go missing. All of them, if found, would have strange marks around their cranium, with one particular one happening in the year 1954. A group of hikers would also be declared missing after a couple found blood in the snow, along with clothes scattered everywhere. But one day, something would destroy New Dawn. At the start of the 80s, a project at the Steelworks led by a Mr. Azakov saw the workers attempt to dig the biggest borehole in history. This didn't go very well, and once the drill got to a depth of 14 kilometers, the drill stopped, started to melt, and an explosion killed most of the crew. Rumors amongst the citizens of New Dawn spoke of tormented screams coming from the depths, prompting concerns that the workers at the Steelworks may have indeed dug a well to hell. Let's have a deeper look at what happened at the Steelworks, where all this kicked off. Remember I mentioned Roman Barrica just now? Well, his two sons, Gabriel and Artur, ended up working at the Steelworks too. Gabriel was a shift supervisor, but he was described as a leader, that he had an intimidating type of charisma, that even after the Steelworks were quarantined, it even refused to leave the area despite being allowed to by the authorities. When the workers were quarantined at the Steelworks, the workers would still turn to Gabriel for guidance. They were frustrated and confused that even after a month of being quarantined, they noticed that there were no doctors arriving, and that the only people arriving to help were the military. They weren't being told anything by the authorities, and they, along with Gabriel, knew that something sinister was happening. People on the outside, the families of the quarantine workers, weren't being told anything either, just that their loved ones would be home soon. But protests outside the Steelworks were becoming more regular, despite the messaging that was urging the families of these workers to trust the soldiers to protect their loved ones. Any parcels sent to the quarantine from the families of the infected were inspected, with pretty much everything being confiscated and destroyed, and this even included innocent items such as photographs. Gabriel made demands, with the military keen to avoid an uprising, that they were permitted to search underneath the main furnace for the workers that had gone missing. He was permitted to take 2 volunteers with him, and they found the missing workers, but Gabriel saw something down there. He saw the visitor. Not long after this, under what was dubbed Project Seraphim, all workers at the plant were to be moved to an isolation zone, with the public being informed that the quarantine had reached a critical phase. A lab was also set up. At some point, Dr. Zibbert took over as the chief physician at the Steelworks. He would record his observations on the people in the isolation zone.
Even the isolated begin to change. We need to conduct detailed laboratory tests on their bodies. Those who survive the first stages of the disease, they merge with each other. It's as if their cells want to create some kind of direct symbiosis. No, it's more than that. It's kind of evolved metabiont. A biological being composed of other beings. Science knows of such cases. But amongst mosses, lichen, or fungi, not humans.
Researchers there began to become worried at just how many times the subjects would merge, along with the fact that there was no way to separate them once they'd merged. Naturally, since Gabriel came into contact with the visitor, people assumed that the visitor was the source of the disease, but this was not the case. They interrogated Gabriel, and they didn't hold back at all.
I've already told you. With a group of workers, we went underground under the main furnace to find the missing. Cut the bullshit about
Meanwhile, the quarantined workers were leaderless. They had become very fed up and made a list of demands, stating that the conditions they were being held under were violating human and civil rights conventions. They demanded that Gabriel be freed from his cell and reinstated as shift supervisor. It's safe to say they didn't get what they'd requested. Then, as was written by one of his closest circle, Gabriel just vanished. Some people said that he'd been taken to the hospital, others said that he'd been killed by the military. With Gabriel gone, the people that followed him just kind of lost hope. We'll follow Gabriel's journey in a bit, but let's now look at this disease. We learn in the game that the strange disease, this virus, was dubbed the Change. When one would become infected, they would suffer from fever, chills, fainting, hallucinations, and they would also begin to lose their sight. They would then develop skin lesions and secrete a thick fluid that researchers believed was a way for these bodies to successfully merge together. Zibert, on the other hand, was simply baffled, even considering that this virus may even be from another world entirely.
I have never encountered anything like this before. The disease seems so strange that it even escapes standard classification. All the information we gathered during the early analysis seemed to indicate that it is a virus, but it doesn't act like one at all. We don't know how it transmits. We don't know how it mutates. It's as if it came from a world with different biological laws. Or was brought, rather. He must be the answer.
When the infected subjects would be taken to Unity Hospital, they'd found that when they were operating on them, their organs would continuously shift and merge, making such procedures extremely difficult. As we saw in the hospital, the biomass has a beating heart too, keeping this biomass alive. Turns out though that even the collective itself knows very little about the Change.
We don't know where it came from. What we do know is what kind of world it left behind.
Did you read any research on the topic?
None of which have yielded answers about what the Change actually is.
They didn't have much time.
Perhaps they were asking the wrong questions. Perhaps this mystery was not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced.
What are you talking about?
It seems to me that the nature of the Change cannot be investigated in a conventional way. It is too ephemeral and fleeting in its essence.
You think it's something beyond ordinary understanding?
I doubt, therefore I am I not?
What the Warden is talking about here is a philosophical statement by Descartes, which speaks about a method of doubt. The act of doubting one's existence proves the existence of a thinking entity, which is of course the self. Let's dive into the story of the mysterious visitor that was encountered at the Steelworks. This is where Veronica Kaminsky comes in. Born in New Dawn in 1948, Veronica was, when growing up, good friends with Edvard, Gabriel, and Angela. Veronica became a gifted scientist, and she actually managed to secure a scholarship under Dr. David Zibert. However, one day Veronica would be called to the Steelworks in New Dawn because they'd found something. A visitor who of course we know to be the Pathfinder, or the Warden. So she arrived at the Steelworks and met this visitor.
Can the citizen confirm that her name is Veronica Kaminsky, born 1948?
Dr. Veronica Kaminsky. What is this? Why am I here? Am I being arrested?
Doctor, you are here because the situation at the Steelworks has changed. We have come into possession of a certain asset.
Asset?
Even though she had been called in by the government, she was under the supervision of the military, who were watching her every move. They clearly had their own plans for the visitor, but the visitor would only speak to one person, and that one person was Veronica. She was the her that the visitor was asking to be brought to her. The military were operating under the orders of the Kremlin and had a set list of questions that Veronica was allowed to ask the visitor, and if she didn't, they'd have to interject.
Taped interview 17. The subject struggles with speaking clearly. It seems to me his...
Doctor, about the subject's well-being.
You want to come down here and swap, Sergeant?
You're out of line, Doctor.
Please help me out here. Don't make it any more difficult.
Veronica was eventually sent away from the Steelworks.
Did the examination bring the desired effect?
Not particularly. That's probably why they took me away from him. I wasn't able to give them what they were really hoping for. But anyway, it's a long story, me and him.
But what exactly did the military want from the visitor, or the asset? Well, they were very interested in potential future technology, as various components from the visitor had been carbon dated to different periods. But not only that, the technology defied the laws of physics. The authorities had heard descriptions of individuals like the visitor in the past due to the cases of missing persons and the strange markings on their heads, as eyewitness accounts did describe the travellers in their diving suits. They'd initially assumed that they were Western intelligence agents. They then thought that the visitor was the source of the disease, and that was the reason Gabriel was infected, since he'd come into contact with the visitor. Veronica and Dr. Zibbert wanted to see if they could use him to produce a cure. But it didn't take Dr. Zibbert very long at all to discover that the change, this strange disease, did not originate from this visitor, ruling out any sort of cure.
I have the results. His molecular structure looks as if he came straight from the beginning of the goddamn universe. Not a trace of disease in him. So, the only thing I can be sure of is that change does not come from the visitor. I think I can confirm that.
In her attempts to make a cure, which was a failure anyway due to there being no antigen to use, Veronica had inadvertently created a poison that could kill the biomass, which we saw the traveller make from the 3 formulas in the hospital. But anyway, things are about to blow up at the Steelworks. Eventually, the infected workers realised that with nothing left to lose, and assuming that the military had killed Gabriel, they would try to overpower the military quarantine. The military's orders to protect the asset at all costs. The military were, of course, torn apart by the infected workers, and they didn't stand a chance, as they were also told they would get reinforcements, but of course they were expendable, and the reinforcements' promise was a lie. Inevitably, the Steelworks would fall. The quarantine had failed, and the whole of New Dawn was now doomed. But the cover of chaos was useful to some, with that being Arto and Veronica, who returned to the Steelworks. I previously mentioned that Veronica, Edvard, Gabriel, and Angela were all part of the same friend group growing up. As they got older though, they drifted apart, but that was mainly down to Edvard. As you'll have seen from the game, he was a bit of a conspiracy nut, and his apartment is testament to that obsession, with reports of missing people, sightings of the travellers, strange traveller-shaped markings on the walls, and much more, plastered all over the walls of his apartment. Turns out that he was actually right, but people considered him a crackpot regardless. Speaking of obsessions, he was also obsessed with Angela. Although she was annoyed with Edvard's insane ramblings, she tried to see the good in him, and that her old friend was in there somewhere, but she was on the other hand worried that he'd end up doing something dangerous. His rhetoric was one of a man who was worried and concerned, but that the message was falling on deaf or even ignorant ears, and therefore his attitude towards humanity was one that they deserved what was coming. Edvard knew something was about to kick off, and the moment the Steelworks incident had happened and the government started to lock things down, and the change started to spread, Edvard seized the moment. He went to speak to Angela and spoke of terrible things, things that have to happen. He kept saying that they will come for him, and he was talking about the travellers. She wanted to stay away from him, but Edvard is Angela's only friend. He'd planned for them both to take refuge in the bunker near to the apartments, something that he'd said was all for her.
Angela, what's going on in the Steelworks? All that stuff I was rambling about, it started whether you believe it or not.
Listen, I don't think this is a good idea. You're scaring me.
They've begun experimenting on people. This martial law is simply to keep everyone in line. People are disappearing, Angela. We're being monitored at all times.
Edvard, you sound like you're having an episode. I'm worried about you.
Then stay with me.
Angela was conflicted though, as her mother, Magda, was going blind. She had been affected by the change and was infected. Angela made the decision to abandon her own mother and go into the bunker with Edvard. As a result, Angela was reported missing, as was Edvard, but only on the list of residents residing in the block. In terms of Magda though, the residents found out that she was infected. In the bunker, though, it soon became overrun, and Angela left it, although not in the way we see in the game, of course. She wanted to check on her mother, but alas, she found that she had gone, so she went to the hospital. Edvard, on the other hand, likely succumbed to the change in the original version of events, because remember, the Travelers travel through the rifts in time in order to extract chosen people's essence before they die as a result of the change, as they become corrupted after that. But yeah, let's look at what happened at the hospital and by extension, Angela's trip to find her mother. So Dr. Zibbet wanted many infected people to be moved to the hospital. Some staff there, however, would protest.
Tell Zybert we are unable to accept any more patients. We can't let the same thing that happened in the Steelworks happen here.
These people need our help. We need to be there for them.
But not at any cost. We must still exercise caution.
I'm afraid it's too late for caution.
What are you talking about?
It's already happening everywhere. And no matter how hard we try to isolate, nothing can stop it.
That's right, Veronica, who had gone back to the hospital after being ejected from the Steelworks, saw the gravity of the situation. There was absolutely nothing they could do now. This thing was spreading across New Dawn and potentially across the entire world. Zibbet would log about how the hospital was bursting at the seams though, and that they were running out of both beds and medical supplies. Some patients that appeared dead were not. They were still alive somehow, as the workers in the morgue found out much to their surprise. So what of Gabriel Barrica? As we know, Gabriel was sent to Unity Hospital at the request of Dr. Zibbet, where upon his condition improving, the military planned to interrogate him in regard to the visitor. Gabriel was placed into immediate isolation, but after suffering a series of mini-strokes, and upon getting aggressive and demanding to leave isolation, he was restrained. They then saw that the next day his hands had fused to his torso, and the surgeons didn't, or rather couldn't, operate on him to disconnect the tissue. In a phone call to his brother, he says something interesting.
Okay, just take care of yourself, okay? I'm fine. It's just... I don't want to leave these people. I want to be with them now. I feel so... alone.
He said that he wants to be with these people. Dr. Zibbet, as well, would log his findings on Gabriel.
Gabriel's condition is deteriorating. He has stopped responding to any stimuli. He has a high fever and is delirious. His brother asked if we could take him home. He knows we can't do anything for him anymore. Interestingly, Gabriel keeps drawing. Still the same thing. The visitor.
Eventually, though, Gabriel would escape isolation after attacking and killing a nurse. He had been mumbling about his people in the Steelworks, and that is exactly where he went. Angela, on the other hand, had been dropped off at the hospital by Arthur, as he was on his way to the Steelworks to meet up with Veronica. She didn't find her mother there, instead finding only chaos, people begging for help and the doctors struggling to manage. Angela felt she should leave, but also felt that she should at least try and help these people somehow. The military wanted to enact mass euthanasia in an attempt to control the situation. Dr. Zibbet opposed this, of course.
The military is making everything more difficult. They continue to delude themselves that they can control it. Fools. I am trying to act against the general recommendation of mass euthanasia. I adapted the basement of the West Wing to move at least some of my patients there. I will try and save as much as I can.
In line with what you heard, he would ask one of the nuns there, Sister Magda, to lead the patients downstairs to the basement of the hospital and told her to dismiss all of the staff. Dr. Zibbet wanted to share in all of their fate. This is where Angela's path collides with Dr. Zibbet's. She wrote that she'd noticed the patients on the bed were gone, that they had all been moved somewhere during the night. She says that Dr. Zibbet said that it's time for them, and that they need to hide downstairs, and that he'll stay with them. It seems that Zibbet had plans to take the visitor from the Steelworks and to the hospital in the hope that the visitor could heal the infected. He even made preparations for them to be able to house the visitor. But the military got wind of his plan, so he made alternative arrangements. As we saw during the events of the game, they would all succumb to the change down there, and Angela would merge with Dr. Zibbet and I'd guess the other patients, which is why when going to speak with Dr. Zibbet in the phylactery, Angela is there. Gabriel, who I mentioned had escaped, went back to the Steelworks where he would eventually succumb to the change after being shot by Arthur. Let's now look at what exactly happened at the church. The church was spoken of as a place to avoid, as it is a place of public gatherings and so people were advised to stay home. However, many people learned about the church being a place of refuge, and given it was located on the outskirts of the city, many believed that it was their best chance of survival. Messaging was distributed throughout the city stating that only union in Christ could give people shelter during the storm. The church was a safe place. Well, it was at first, anyway, and Dr. Zibbert knew this. He had hatched a plan should the military attempt to take the visitor themselves, and this involved smuggling the visitor out from the steelworks. This would involve the not-so-easy feat of getting back into the steelworks. Veronica eventually got back inside with the help of Arto Barrica.
I can handle myself, thanks.
Alright, jeez. Help isn't fucking cyanide, girl. You need to have some from time to time.
Listen, just so we're clear, we are not friends. We are here because we have a deal. You were meant to help me get inside, that's all right.
Hey! After you told me my brother might return, I didn't have to drag you with me at all. What the fuck are you looking for here anyway?
Let's just say Gabriel wasn't the only one who saw him.
Arthur was a drunk, and he'd actually been suspended and placed on leave by Gabriel shortly before the incident at the steelworks, so he got lucky. The kicker here for Arthur, though, is that his brother was the one that suspended him, and Arthur didn't take that well, as you'd expect. Although to Gabriel's credit, he did try to get his brother reinstated. Anyway, someone from the military ended up helping them, a disillusioned senior officer by the name of Marzek. His fellow soldiers felt that he was a traitor and ordered him executed if he's ever seen. Prior to Zibbert's death at the hospital, he'd made arrangements to have the visitor kept at the church because, as we'd seen, and since the priest there had died after visiting the steelworks, Zibbert's daughter Eliza, with whom he had an extremely strained relationship, was in charge there as she was a nun. He had Officer Marzek take the visitor to the church and then died at the hospital, as was his wish. Marzek then, from the notes of the Abbey, revealed that he confessed. He says that he ordered his men to kill people, and he turned against his men afterwards by helping smuggle out the visitor. From his writings, it seems that Marzek didn't know exactly what it was that he was being asked to transport there, only that he knew it was of great importance. From the moment the traveller arrives on the outskirts and starts her journey to the Abbey, it immediately became clear that something wasn't right. The words "Don't fear the change" were written on the walls here, but what exactly happened? It all began pretty normally. Mother Eliza would take control of the place and people would follow her and listen to her. She had kept the visitor being there a secret, but one day, 2 nuns approached her and said that they wanted to see the body. Very soon, everyone knew about the visitor. Simply put, the church started to believe that these were the prophesied end times, and that the coming of the visitor, or the Pathfinder, was a divine act of God. That they began to worship the Pathfinder as some sort of saviour, an angel that would deliver them to God. Mother Eliza wasn't affected by this at first, writing that blasphemy had twisted the faces of her sisters, but she would be affected eventually, and one by one they all began to succumb to the change, including Mother Eliza. They all became cult-like in their devotion. Over time, the messaging of the church became more manic, saying that those who fear the change are fools, and that the change is what will lead them all to salvation and communion with God, that anyone who tries to stop this divine plan are fools. They all would then become merged together, becoming the entity with Mother Eliza at the head. But what's weird is the level of influence that Mother Eliza had in this area. When the traveller gets there, she can listen to a travelogue from a predecessor.
I have reached Sector A25, and am beginning the search for the dive point. Something is interfering with my readings. My sensors go haywire whenever I get close to the church buildings. The only thing I pick up is some kind of presence. A voice. I can't categorize it or assess its origin. I decided to classify it as hostile. Such is our calling.
This is the same voice that the traveller hears when journeying through the catacombs underneath the Abbey. It speaks of how it senses a traveller is there. It also asks if the traveller has come to rejoin with the others. Another predecessor talks about the behaviour of the orphans in the area being very unusual, as if they were being commanded, and they became aggressive when someone would attempt to approach the inner courtyard, which was, of course, close to where the visitor was being kept. But let's move on. So it's not exactly clear when the lockdown came into effect in terms of the general timeline, but it's likely around when the Steelworks quarantine failed. After everything had happened, this was now being treated as a full-blown epidemic, although the authorities were quick to quell any talk of it being so with Dr. Robert Tykwer calling any claims of people going blind absurd lies, but as we know, one of the symptoms of the change was indeed blindness. In fact, pharmacies were fast running out of resources as so many people were losing their eyesight, with pharmacists turning to hospitals to try and secure more. The hospitals were collapsing though under the sheer weight of what was happening, and any external requests for supplies were being denied. Schools were closed and families were urged to stay indoors, keep an eye on neighbours, report any odd behaviour, and above all to comply with the government's precautionary measures in order to prevent the spread of infection. Along with that, there was a ban on public gatherings because, as they put it, the virus never sleeps. Kids were frustrated at not being able to go out, and they would inevitably start to notice things happening outside involving the military, and kids would see people lying in the snow, but these kids were not stupid, and they knew this was not good. The mayor of New Dawn would send out messaging, advice on how to make household supplies, such as food, go further, and he would tell citizens to think about the we and not the me. The military would tell the citizens of New Dawn that the crisis was under control, and that things would go back to normal very soon, as the spread of the foreign virus had been halted. That's right, the blame for this crisis was being sold to the public as an attack by the West, and to ignore any false narratives from the West, and they promised a vaccine would be available very soon. They assured the public that isolating Poland as a nation would only serve to strengthen the nation and its people. Then more people started to go missing. These people too would show up with strange markings on their heads. But things would not go back to normal at all. In fact, the government ordered a permanent lockdown and told the public that anyone who attempted to leave New Dawn would be severely punished. Apartment blocks and housing projects were at high risk, and areas of these apartment blocks would be gated off under quarantine. But people were fighting back and were leaving messages showing that certain people did not trust what the government, the politicians and the military were telling them. Of course, these messages against the authorities were branded as anarchy and vandalism against the property of the Republic. These messages were part of a movement known as Revolt, that Edvard was likely a part of, in which the group would try and inform people of what was really going on. In terms of body disposal, the authorities were having trouble, as they were fast running out of fuel for both cremation and to power the bulldozers to dig ditches, and bodies were piling up. This grim situation was now out of control. They tried to get people to stay by lying and telling citizens that they were on the verge of discovering a cure. The politicians then, who of course had gotten themselves nice and rich despite all their calls that socialism was for the good of the people, had attempted to buy their way out of the city when the proverbial crap hit the fan. Many of the people they tried to bribe though were smart enough to know that the money they were trying to pay them with was effectively worthless. A minister, Dobrucki, was due to get to the tram station with a big bag of cash. The plan was to help him get onto some transport out of the city. However, this did not go to plan, as he was spotted by many disgruntled members of the public who weren't allowed to leave, who had realised that he was trying to flee and they tore him apart. Before we dive into what the Vocation is, let's quickly look at what the Collective is. It's certainly possible that the Collective came about as a direct result of what happened at the Steelworks. This disease appears, although not confirmed, to have wiped out humanity, and the Collective is a way of preserving humanity. Kind of like an evolutionary hive mind, but one that happened after the change had been completed.
Well, although the change seems cruel and painful, it is what led to the collective origin in the finale. Like a hideous cocoon from which the new face of the human race blossomed. But those who never managed to come together in time,
they became orphans.
Yes, the orphans.
The Warden states through conversation that the Collective has different roles for different personnel, I guess you could call them. He mentions Leviathans, Praetorians, Trackers, Wardens and Travellers. These individuals are the emissaries of the Collective, and they travel back through time to the point the world ended. The decision on what type of unit to wake and send is based on the current need of the Vocation. For example, if something needs fixing, they'll send a Warden instead of a Traveller. Some would be given the task of paving the path for successors, and this would be setting up equipment and outposts, as well as setting up anti-gravity paths between ruined buildings. But onto the Vocation. The Vocation is defined as a person's employment or main occupation. So the Vocation is essentially the mission of the Traveller, their purpose. The Traveller's Vocation requires the essences of selected targets who are needed by the Collective, and let's look at a few of these targets. A young boy called Marcel Marzek would go missing despite showing no symptoms of the change. We can find Marcel's essence in a toy store inside the station, and it's in the phylactery of another Traveller designated 4335. His mother Lydia's essence, on the other hand, is found on Traveller 2187. As a side note, Lydia's husband and Marcel's father was the senior officer and was present at the Steelworks, who, remember, helped hide the visitor from the military. As for Officer Marzek's fate, during the journey through the church, we can find a letter which says that a traveller had arrived in order to extract him. After young Marcel's essence was extracted, his body was examined by the coroner and he was perplexed, as not only did he have the telltale signs of cranial trauma from the extraction process, but he also wasn't decomposing. Rigor mortis was not happening either. It's as if the extraction process had frozen his body in time. The entire family had been chosen by the collective to ascend, but sadly, none of them were able to, as these 3 essences never uploaded or ascended to become part of the collective, as all of the travellers carrying them died. Essences that are stuck inside a fallen traveller slowly become corrupted.
The phylacteries, while sturdy and excellent at protecting the essences, are only containers used to carry them. They cannot serve as permanent residents. The essences want to be in constant wandering. Transmigration, if you will. And without their carrier's energy, they fall apart. They become corrupted.
Corrupted?
Yes. By remaining in suspension in the stasis of the phylactery, the essences slowly lose their integrity.
But why? Aren't they eternal?
What is not in motion dies. Everything longs for change.
Are they dangerous?
To us travelers, I don't know.
As we saw, essences can be dangerous, as if kept inside the phylactery for too long, that person's essence will try to take over the traveller. This is indicated by hearing the voices of the essence.
The one always alone.
This will then culminate in the traveller going mad after losing their sanity. The predecessor that was housing Marcel's essence in his phylactery actually had this happen to him, and Marcel began to take over. It would get more pronounced as 2187 began to speak in a more childlike manner, and this happened up until the point that Marcel completely took over.
I've conducted a standard cognitive abilities trial on myself. The results are, I miss her. At first, this new armor was cool and all, and it was fun to shoot monsters, but it's been so long, and I've become very lonely inside. She would know how to make it fun again. I miss her a lot. My phylactery has malfunctioned. I have to regain failure. Initiating emergency.
Finally! Ready or not, here I come.
This does a good job of explaining why 2187 ended up in a toy shop. It was Marcel, and he was the one drawing on the walls in the station too. If you look closely at the traveller that was on the train, the one that was carrying Lydia's essence, there appears to be a toy soldier in the traveller's hand, which he may have picked up from Marcel after Lydia took over. But let's now look at fate. No matter what variation of events take place, people that have not been chosen by the collective to be extracted, well, their fate is always set no matter what. So Angela running out of the bunker because it was overrun leads her to exactly the same fate as her taking off running away from the traveller and Edvard's ramblings here. Kind of like a final destination kind of deal. You can't escape your fate unless you've been chosen. I hope that makes sense. In terms of Veronica, as we saw through the 2 standard endings, her fate was not able to be changed, as in both of those outcomes, she would be infected by the change, and this was regardless of what happened. But what is the terminal? Well, according to a note left by the Warden, it's technology of the collective that draws its power from the fading remnants of human energy sources. The Warden believes that these energy sources would have died out long ago, if not for the force of the anomalies, which they also refer to as oddities. In addition, the Warden thinks the collective's actions in using the terminal also birthed these anomalies.
And thus, the oddities. They wouldn't have existed without us, and we without them. This issue resembles the chicken or the egg question.
The causality dilemma.
Yes. Changes in the fabric of reality allow us to fulfill the vocation. But where did they come from?
The terminal is also choosing new targets for extraction despite almost being wrecked, and the Warden is slightly intrigued by how the terminal selects its targets with there being a key to the targets. They aren't just random. He thinks it is trying to draw their attention to something, but what that is never really explained. Now we'll dive into the part of the lore that I will admit confused the hell out of me the first time I played the game. The Warden, aka the Visitor, the Pathfinder, and the Asset. Here goes. As we found out late game, the Warden is the Pathfinder, the mysterious cape-wearing individual that just randomly shows up after the first attempt at carrying out an ascendance. His job is to maintain the tools and the equipment used by the collective. He was initially sent as a traveller himself, and then he started calling himself the Pathfinder after he became disillusioned with the collective and because he became obsessed with humanity and his target, Veronica. The Warden would leave plenty of notes, travelogues around, which gave us a glimpse into his character. One of the earlier notes speaks of a longing for something, to know the cold and then the warmth as a result. He speaks of not growing near. This shows us the first part of him learning about humanity and softening towards it. That humanity itself, along with how they were created, is actually quite delightful, and it does show some resentment towards his own being. He also resented the collective too, even denouncing them. We see more of this shortly after extracting the second essence, the one belonging to Artur, as the Warden is looking at the things that humans enjoy, such as playing piano and loving art, with him describing these things as non-essential for the survival of humanity, but are things that they nonetheless enjoy, giving them their humanity. As we saw, the Warden had saved what he could of Veronica's body and had her hooked up to a machine as part of the Lazarus Protocol. Since his target for extraction was Veronica, he would search the Steelworks for her, and that is when he was encountered by Gabriel and captured by the military. This is why the Visitor only wanted to speak with Veronica as she was his target. This was his vocation and nothing else mattered.
So what exactly do you want from me?
I wanted to save you. When I found out you were my next target, I knew I would not be able to do it.
What's the point of saving me if we can't help anyone else?
We cannot. Here and now. But what I learned about you is that you are relentless.
So what's your plan then?
My plan was to keep you safe and hope you will find a way.
Hope. That's it?
That's another thing I learned from you.
But as she talked to him more and more, he became infatuated with her. As a result, he wanted nothing else other than to find a way to preserve Veronica. His idea was to save Veronica by awakening a traveller and essentially uploading Veronica's essence into them. But Veronica had gaps in her memory matrix, and the Warden used the essences that our traveller had collected in order to fill those gaps, along with what he once was. He wanted Veronica to rise from the dead like Lazarus, hence the name of the project. Due to his manipulation of time, he speaks of his cognitive processes getting tangled up and details becoming blurry. He considers that time has affected his mind because whoever created him did not mean for him to be alive this long. He would seemingly get around this by sending his thoughts to himself in the future. He mentions that at the time of the game's events, over 300 travelers had been awakened and had succumbed to his attempts to revive Veronica. But how did he stay alive? Well, he would use the empty bodies of previous travelers and their parts in order to extend his own lifespan. What he didn't bank on though was the awakening or activation of ND3576, our traveler, and he speaks about this.
Plans. She awoke on her own. By some miracle, the Rev Capsule's Traveler launch protocol was triggered, and before I knew what was going on, she was already sitting there, connected to the terminal. I know I promised myself that I couldn't intervene anymore. But if I didn't get her out of there, she would fry. Why doesn't she remember anything? I have to wait. I have to keep my distance. I have to keep quiet.
As you'll have heard there, he was also confused as to why she didn't remember anything. And this could also be why when she arrived in New Dawn, the Traveler did not have a set target straight away. He was encouraged by the fact that the predecessors started to show signs of real human reactions to situations such as struggling, panicking, and crying. But then when the process resets and a new traveler is awakened, they no longer react. He thinks that this is Veronica trying to hide. As for why the terminal kept failing, well, it's certainly possible that the Warden tampered with it in order to prevent the traveler from completing her own vocation, and so she would instead be directed to help the Warden complete his instead, which was the revival of Veronica. One thing we need to clear up is this scene here after the Pathfinder awakens. In it, the Pathfinder is speaking to Veronica on the phone and says that another of him has appeared in the same timeline. Another traveler. I know it's all very confusing. The Pathfinder says in this call that this person will want to replace him and continue the vocation. He says that all he can do is switch himself off to give them a bit more time, which is why, at the church, he's completely switched off. He told Veronica not to trust any of them because, unlike him in sparing her, they'll simply follow the vocation and extract her. This is why Veronica runs away when seeing the Traveler. As we saw, the Traveler tore Veronica's body away from the Lazarus device, and this action effectively ended the Warden's initial plan to awaken her the way he had been. He had to come up with another solution, and this was him going to the clock tower. He planned to reverse this to stop it all before it happens by taking her to the future where their technology was fully functional and they could be together forever. As mentioned when covering the endings, there's a secret ending which is only achievable through completing a New Game Plus run. This one is titled the Begin Anew ending, and in it, the Pathfinder tells Veronica that maybe she'll have more hope for a better future with the Traveler. The Traveler starts to remember that all this happened before, which was of course one of the two previous endings. After using the tool to open the rift, the Traveler and Veronica step through the rift, and afterwards, the Traveler emerges from the pod, just like the one she arrived in, and offers her hand. This likely indicates that Veronica and the Traveler can at least try and save humanity. That's what I garnered from this ending. Anyway, let me know your theories on this one in the comments below. But that's it for the story of Cronos: The New Dawn. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, as this helps the video perform a bit better. Leave a comment and subscribe if you aren't already, but for now, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.